Previously on Dark Winter.
My name is Greg. I live in north central Pennsylvania. It is December the 1st, 2022, just 3 days after the nuclear attack on the United States of America. The first nuclear war in history. I have a very small storage room in my basement that's surrounded by cinder blocks, and there's a concrete slab on top of it. And I thought it would be best to spend the first 2 days in that cellar because it's the most protected part of my house. And I already left that cellar this morning because the radiation levels have subsided enough out here in the rest of my basement that it's safe enough for me to live down here for the next 10 days.
This is not a test. This is an emergency message broadcasted by the United States government with important information for the American people. The President and the National Command Authority are in secure locations scattered across the country. At 3:45 p.m. on November 28, 2022, the President authorized a full-scale nuclear retaliation strike against the Russian Federation. Preliminary assessment shows that 90% of Russia's nuclear arsenal was destroyed. Another nuclear attack from the Russian Federation is not likely in the near future. The United States military assesses that all major metropolitan areas in the country have sustained substantial destruction. This includes New York, Washington, Los Angeles, St. Louis, Chicago, Dallas, Portland, Orlando, and Seattle. Several high-altitude nuclear warheads were detonated over the country, causing a nationwide blackout from electromagnetic pulse. It will take 6 months to restore electricity to most of the country.
I'm just happy that I was prepared. I think I hear someone knocking on my door now. Sounds like someone's knocking on my door.
It's a good thing I got my gas mask and I got this poncho. I'm putting on my poncho to make sure that I don't get any fallout or any kind of radioactive particles on my body. Who is it? Identify yourself.
It's December the 3rd, 2022, 5 days after the first nuclear war in history. My name is Greg. I live in north central Pennsylvania, and I'm in my basement right now trying to survive the fallout, and I'm keeping a video log of my experiences surviving this national crisis. So we had a contingency situation here just 2 nights ago. I was in the process of recording the previous video log, and I heard somebody knocking on my door. So I went upstairs to investigate, and I found a woman at my door. Her name is Nancy, and she's actually down here in the basement with me right now. She's actually sleeping. She's been really hungry and tired and thirsty, so she just crashed. As soon as I brought her down here, gave her some food and water, she just crashed, so she's just sleeping now. But my current status, I feel good physically. Mentally, I'm still kind of sad, obviously. So I'm sure probably millions of Americans perished from those Russian nuclear missiles. So that's still weighing on me. And I'm curious if some of my family members are okay. My parents are in Tennessee, and I have some other family in New York. I have family all over the country, actually, in Florida, California, and I'm just worried about them. I have friends in New York, childhood friends that I grew up with on Long Island and various parts of New York State, including my buddy Hudson Valley Prepping and Survival, an angry prepper. So I'm just thinking about my friends and family, and I'm hoping that they're okay. I hope that they listen to my advice to take shelter underground, to find a really solid underground structure like a basement or subway tunnel or something like that. And I just hope that they took my advice and found some adequate shelter. I have no way of communicating with them. I'm really concerned about my parents. They just retired, and I know my dad's a tough SOB, even though he's older now, but the guy is tough as nails. He can shoot, and I've been hunting with him my whole life, and he's just all around excellent outdoorsman and just very handy guy, very resourceful. So I'm not super worried about him and my mom, because I know my dad will take care of her. But I'm worried about some other family members that I have, and I'm worried about my friends. So that's kind of weighing on me right now. And my radiation dose right now is 40 millisieverts, which is still quite low considering this was a full-scale nuclear attack. And we don't know how many nukes landed in the United States, but probably hundreds, if not 1,000 or more. Just like the emergency alert system message said. It said that there were 1,000 or so nuclear warheads that were going to be detonating inside of US borders. So considering that, I'm doing pretty good. I'm actually doing very good. Physically, I don't feel exhausted. I don't feel tired. I'm not sick. And 40 millisieverts is almost as much as the EPA recommends for radiation workers for an entire year. The EPA recommends 50 millisieverts max per year for radiation workers. Those are people who work at nuclear power plants. So I'm almost at that level, but I'm still very far away from radiation poisoning. But I could easily increase my dose if I'm not careful and I go outside for too long, or if I stumble upon an area that has a lot of radioactive fallout concentrated either from rain out or snow out, or if rain washed away fallout and into an area where all the fallout concentrated through the rainwater, such as a drainage ditch. It's a perfect example. That's a bad area to be. And then obviously rain out and snow out is something that I'm concerned with in the coming weeks, because even if the fallout subsides, there's still some radioactive particles in the sky that can irradiate the clouds. And when there's snow or rain, the snow and rain is literally radioactive. So that's something that I'm worried about, and I'm going to be monitoring. It did start to get a little colder down here, So I'm glad that I brought some jackets and spare clothing, because I know I'm not going to be able to really do any laundry down here. I did bring a bucket that I'm going to use just to hand wash some of my clothes to make sure that I have clean clothes and keep my hygiene good. And I did bring like some soap and stuff just to wash up, and keep my hygiene going, which is really important. Those little things down here in this confined space, those little things can mean a lot. Just having a little bit of soap and a bucket of water just to clean yourself a little bit, it can make a huge difference. Dental hygiene is critical. And I made sure to bring my toothbrush and toothpaste. It sounds kind of funny, in the middle of a nuclear war, that's probably the last thing a lot of people thought about. But if you don't maintain your teeth, you can have some serious problems. You can go into septic shock if you have an infection in your mouth, and the bacteria can spread to your bloodstream, and you can die from that. So I definitely don't want to be in that kind of a situation. I want to keep my health in tip-top shape. I've been doing just some calisthenics down here to maintain some basic level of fitness, some push-ups, jumping jacks, high knees, lunges, things like that. I have some heavy objects down here that I'm just kind of lifting, some crates of food that I have, canned food. I have some crates of food that I lift, press over my head and do some curls with and things like that, just to maintain some basic level of fitness and to kind of keep my mind off of what's going on up there, okay, the craziness that's going on up there. And, as bad as it is being in this basement, I would say that I actually am starting to like this basement now more than I ever have. For most people, basements are just considered like a storage area. They're dark, they're full of spiders, they're cold, they're, kind of dingy. But I actually really love this basement now because I know it's safe down here. I have everything I need, and I know that what's going on up there is a whole lot worse and will be a whole lot worse as time goes on. Right now, it's just the radiation that I'm concerned about. But once the radiation subsides and people start to emerge from their shelters, from their basements, that's when things are going to really get interesting. Once people realize that they can't just drive down to their grocery store and get groceries, people are just really going to freak out. And I just hope that our military and the National Guard set up those distribution points as quickly as possible to minimize the panic and the chaos so they can get the food out to people. I'm also concerned about martial law and our government using this situation to their benefit and basically creating an endless martial law state and imposing all kinds of restrictions on our constitutional rights. And so I'm keeping an eye on what our government does, and I'm ready to act to resist any kind of martial law or any kind of permanent state of emergency or any kind of forced camps where you have to go into a camp against your will to be quarantined for whatever reason, to be treated for radiation, to be separated from the general population for whatever reason. I'm ready to resist against that. And I know several people that I can link up with who would be willing to resist with me and that I know I can trust. And I already have plans with those people. So if anything like that goes down, I'm going to be linking up with them. So this woman that came to my door, her name is Nancy. She's 47 years old, and she was on her way home from Pittsburgh to New York. Specifically, she lives in New York City area. She didn't elaborate where exactly, but she lives in the New York City area, and her daughter goes to college in Pittsburgh. And she was visiting her daughter over the Thanksgiving break in the Pittsburgh area. And she was on her way back to New York City. She was driving on I-80 through western Pennsylvania, and that's when she got the alert that there were nuclear warheads imminent and that she had to find shelter. So she was driving around looking for suitable shelter, but western Pennsylvania is very isolated. There's really nothing here except forests and hills. So she was driving around, and she eventually ran out of gas not too far away from where I live. And she left her vehicle, which is surprisingly a carbureted Ford Bronco, which is very rare for 2022. And the reason why she had a Ford Bronco with a carburetor in it, it's an old Bronco that her husband had before he died, and he died in Iraq, and he had a Ford Bronco, and she liked to drive it anytime she would go to Pittsburgh because of the snowy roads here, especially around Thanksgiving time. Roads can be really snowy. I-80 can be really bad from lake effect snow. So she liked to drive that old Ford Bronco. It reminded her of her husband, and she felt safe in it driving on the interstate over here with the lake effect snow and everything, four-wheel drive and the power of the engine and everything. So she liked to drive that Bronco to Pittsburgh when it was in the colder months. So she was looking for a place to shelter, and her vehicle ran out of gas, and she surprisingly was able to find this big culvert that goes underneath the highway. And this culvert normally in the wetter months, like in the springtime, has like a small stream that goes under it, but because it's early winter, everything's either frozen or it's pretty dry. So this culvert was pretty dry. There wasn't any running water under it, so she got under that culvert. And it's really not a culvert, it's like a huge tunnel. And the tunnel is like probably 200 or 300 yards from one side to the other. And on top is like probably hundreds of feet of earth. And then on top of that, you have the highway. So it was a really good shelter spot she found. And so she stayed under there for the first 2 days, and she ran out of food and water. And so after the first 2 days, she started to panic because she knew she didn't have anything to eat and she was really thirsty. So she left from that culvert and started walking around the area, and she was going house to house, knocking on people's doors, asking for help, and nobody would let her in. So she stumbled upon my house, and I guess I was the first person to let her in. So I decontaminated her. I brought her into my garage, and I decontaminated her. So I told her to strip down and take all her clothes off and put her clothes in a garbage bag and toss the garbage bag outside because her clothes probably had fallout particles on them. And then I gave her a towel to wipe her body off with, and that was basically it. I told her to, rub her hair really thoroughly and get any kind of debris out of her hair, any kind of dust, any kind of fallout particles, to really scrub her head and get all the fallout particles out. And I gave her some clean clothes, and after she did all that, I took my dosimeter, which I wear on my person all the time still, and I measured her radiation because she was outside. So I was concerned that she literally got irradiated. And so I tested that, and she wasn't irradiated. She was fine. So then I deemed it safe to bring her down here into the basement with me. I wasn't going to just leave her in the garage. It's cold outside and stuff, and it's just not, something you do. I'm not going to treat people like animals, especially a woman, a widowed woman who was visiting her daughter in college, and her husband was in the service. So I felt it my duty to take care of her. But who knows, maybe she just made up all that stuff and it's just one big story, and maybe she has a group of people that are going to raid my place now, and she's just distracting me, and they're going to raid my place and take everything. So I'm prepared for that. As you see, I'm armed at all times, and I'm ready. Another thing that concerns me is she might try to steal some of my supplies when I'm not looking, because I can't watch all my supplies all the time. So there's some risks in taking her in, and I'm aware of that, but sometimes you just have to take a chance, and in this situation I felt the chance and the risk was worth it. So I spoke with Nancy. I asked her to debrief me on what she saw out there and what her experience was like in that culvert. And we talked a little bit about her plans, and she said that in 9 days after the 2-week mark, she wants to go back to Pittsburgh and look for her daughter. And because she has a Ford Bronco with a carburetor, her Ford Bronco likely was unaffected by the EMPs. So what I'm going to do is, after 9 days passes, I'm going to give her some gas, and I'm going to give her one of my loaner 9mm pistols. And I'm just so glad that I had the forethought to stockpile cheap 9mm pistols. And now I have some spare pistols I can loan out to people. And so I'm going to give her one of my loaner 9mm, and I'm going to give her some 9mm ammo, and I'm going to give her some mags, and I'm going to give her some gas, and send her on her way. She said that she really wants to go back to Pittsburgh and find her daughter. I warned her that it would be dangerous to do that because people are going to be desperate, and especially her being a woman by herself, it's very dangerous. But after talking with her, I think she'll be okay. She's very resourceful. She raised her daughter basically on her own because her husband passed away when her daughter was little, so she's been raising her daughter by herself, and she's pretty resourceful. So I'm not going to say I'm not going to be worried about her, but I think she'll be okay. So that's the plan. She's going to stay here another 9 days, and then I'm going to send her off with some gas and a spare 9mm pistol. And I'll give her some maps as well, and maybe some other items. Maybe I'll give her some spare wool socks that I have, and maybe some spare wool hats and gloves to keep her warm, because it is December in Western Pennsylvania. Is no joke. It can get really cold here and a lot of snow. So I'll give her some other items as well before she leaves. So I'm going to actually go out right now, and I have some waste I have to dispose of, human waste. It's building up, so I have to go out there and toss it outside. I don't want any bacteria buildup in my house. I've been actually just going up to the top of the stairs and tossing the waste at the top of the stairs, which is where the entrance to my basement is. It goes right into my kitchen, and I don't want to have piles of human waste in my kitchen and down here, because I do plan to inhabit the upper floors of the house once the radiation subsides. But honestly, I feel so safe down here. I don't even know if after the radiation subsides, if I even want to go upstairs, because once I go upstairs, it exposes me to things like bullets and other hazards. Down here, it's basically a bunker in this basement. I feel so safe from radiation, safe from bullets. And basements have a natural climate control because they're underground. It doesn't get super cold and it doesn't get super hot. So it's pretty nice down here, but I do plan to return to the upstairs once the radiation subsides. So I just don't want any bacteria to build up in there. And I have the waste and garbage bags that I tied off, but still I want to toss it outside, and at the same time I want to see if anybody followed Nancy here, and I want to just do very, very quick recon around my perimeter here and see if she doesn't have any kind of friends that might be trying to raid me right now. I don't think so, but you just never know. You can't really trust people anymore, especially after this situation. It's going to be very, very hard to trust people now. So I'm going to go out there in a couple of minutes, toss out my waste, and do very quick reconnaissance around my property, see if I can't see any tracks or any sign of people wandering around where they're not supposed to be wandering, and if there's no raid that's imminent on my bunker here, because I do have several months worth of food here, and I have a lot of ammunition. I could outfit a small army, and I have water, I have everything here. So I just hope that she's not lying to me. I don't think she is, but she knows that I have a lot of supplies here, so she might also try to come back with some friends, who knows, several weeks or several months down the road, because she's going to remember where my house was and that I was prepared. Hopefully that's not the case. If I just take her at face value, I think everything will be fine. But I guess I'll find out in the coming hours, in the coming days, if she's not bullshitting me. I don't think she is, though. So she said when she was on the interstate, she said she saw complete panic. People were pulling off the side of the road and running into the woods looking for shelter. And she said she actually saw all kinds of military planes flying over the interstate. She saw B-2s being escorted by fighter jets. And she also said that right before she went into the culvert, she must have found this culvert like right when the attack occurred, when the first warheads were detonated, because she saw the sky turn orange. And I actually saw the same thing. I took a peek outside and I saw the sky turn orange, and that's from probably the high altitude detonations, the EMPs. So the whole sky was like this orange color. It was really bizarre. But other than that, that's kind of all the information she had for me, really. She ran into that culvert, and then she stayed there the first 2 days, and she started really getting hungry and thirsty and cold. She was really cold. She was almost hypothermic when she came to my door. And she just started wandering aimlessly, knocking on people's doors. She wandered for miles. I don't know how many miles based on her description of where the culvert is. I know the area. She probably wandered like 10 or 15 miles. So she was definitely in dire straits, but I think she's going to be okay now. She's in good hands. And then we're going to figure out a way to get her to her daughter safely. So I hope her daughter's safe. I hope her daughter went into the basement of her dorm building or something like that. And I hope she has some good friends over there at her college that she can rely on now. because she's going to need them. So I'm going to get geared up now. I'm going to go out there and do this quick patrol, very quick. I have to limit my time out there, and I'm going to toss this waste out. So the kit that I'm using down here in the basement for now, just for general purpose, I got my AR-10. I got 2 spare mags and then 1 mag in the rifle. So these are 20 round mags, and I got a 20 round mag in the rifle itself. So that's 60 rounds. I got my 1911 chambered in 10mm with 3 spare mags, 16 rounds each. And then I got my tourniquet here. And this is all I really need right now. This is just a general purpose kit. It's lightweight and it's got everything I need on it. And my AR-10 has a 2 to 10 power scope, so I can engage out to 800 yards comfortably. And I have a red dot on top of the scope itself in case I need to engage at close distances, close quarters. I have my knife here on the side in case all else fails, and I'm running this AR-10 suppressed just in case I have to use my rifle in close quarters. The suppressor makes a huge difference in close quarters. It won't blow out my eardrums, and then obviously it's much quieter, so there's a lot of benefits to it. So that's my kit that I've been running down here in the basement. So I'm going to go out there now and I'm going to toss out that fecal matter that's been building up for the last couple of days that I have bagged up. I don't want any bacteria growing in here. Plus it's starting to smell a little bit. And then while I'm at it, I'm going to do a quick, very quick reconnaissance patrol around my area and security patrol. I'm going to see if anybody's been wandering around and if Nancy didn't bring somebody with her, you know, that's going to try to maybe attack me or something like that. So I'm going to be looking for any kind of signs of human activity around my perimeter. I'm going to limit myself to about 30 minutes or so because I don't want to accumulate extra radiation. So I'm going to get geared up now. I'm going to put my mask on and my poncho, and I'm going to head out there. This is going to be the first time that I venture out after the fallout landed. So hopefully everything will go well. I'm going to be on very high alert, but there shouldn't be any people out there because the radiation is still pretty high. So I don't anticipate running into anybody, but you just never know. I mean, I trust Nancy, but you know, you just really don't know people. So, you know, I don't know if she's got someone that's going to try to raid my place now, and she's just distracting me while they get into position. So I'm just going to go out there and double check everything. So I got my mask and my poncho. Keep that radiation off of me. I got my body camera so I can document everything I see. This is going to be the first time I left my basement or my house since the attack started. So who knows what's out there. Alright guys, here we go. First time leaving my house since the nuclear attack. Let's get this waste out.
very strong moon, guys. Very strong moon. You can see everything. I don't see any tracks. Just gonna cut the light off in case anybody's observing. You can see a lot with the moon. I don't see any tracks. Looks clear. Looks like she just came by herself. Yeah, it looks clear, guys. I do not see any signs of people here. I don't see any tracks anywhere in the frost. The moon is really bright. It's almost a full moon. I'm going to have to decontaminate myself once I get back inside. Looks clear. It's really clear. Yeah, I don't see any tracks in the frost. Just checking my perimeter. Yeah, so everything looks clear. It's just so quiet out here. So quiet. Can't hear anything coming from my neighbors' houses, but they're pretty far off. I think I'm going to go back inside and decontaminate, but this was a good, successful, quick recon. Took the waste out. Now I'm going to head inside. Wait for this radiation to subside completely. I want to absorb unnecessary amounts of radiation. So I'm going to go back inside now. But everything is clear out here for now. Of course, that could change in a couple of days, a couple of weeks, couple of months. I'm sure there's going to be some desperate, hungry people and bad elements passing through my little country town, thinking that it's an easy target, but they don't realize there's the redneck army, and the redneck army lives in all rural areas across the United States. And there's millions of us out here, so any gang members or any marauders stupid enough to come out here, they're going to be taught a lesson. Unfortunately, I'm probably going to have to make an example out of the first marauder that comes, so this way more marauders don't come. Kind of scare them off, make an example out of the first one. Let them know that I'm not one to be messed with. Survival of the fittest. That's the world we live in now. Have to do whatever it takes to survive. Protect my family. Protect what I have. My food and my supplies are everything. If somebody takes it, I starve, I die. My family starves, they die. So protection of my supplies is critical. It looks all clear out here. I'm going to head back inside and decontaminate in the garage. Check on Nancy. Make sure she's not doing anything like taking with some of my supplies.